So far, in the Modern Warfare and Warzone meta, I've been seeing ARs and SMGs get the majority of the love from the community so far. Weapons like the Kastov 762, the Lockman Sub, just recently the M13B, the TAQ-56, all pretty common, albeit household names in the COD community right now. But one weapon I have been loving lately is the TAQ-56's big brother, the TAQ-V. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today we're going to be doing a weapon review for the TAQ-V battle rifle for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So, as is tradition here on the channel, here's how our weapon reviews are structured. First things first, we'll go over some weapon statistics, which is including time to kill stats for the Warzone 2-plate and 3-plate opponents that you'll come across. Following that, we'll go over some attachment setups and best builds based on some of the testing that I've done for both Warzone and multiplayer, just to work out where the weapon is weak and where it can be improved via some attachments. And then finally, we'll go over some quick tips and tricks as a wrap up to the whole review. As always, a special thank you goes out to sim.gg for being an amazing resource that feeds the statistical analysis of this video. Without further ado, let's get into the review. As is tradition here, we're going to kick things off with the damage model here, and holy crap, this weapon kicks like a drugged up on steroids horse. Look at that damage model, ladies and gentlemen. We start off here with a maximum baseline damage that sits in at 37 out to a 19.1 meter range, dropping off to a minimum damage of 25 out to a 46 meter range, which in effect gives us a very consistent damage over range that sees us hitting 3-shot kills all the way out to 31.5 meters before we eventually find ourselves out with a 4-shot kill beyond that. So already, a 4-shot kill across the board at the bare minimum is pretty sweet, but the damage consistency still has yet to get better. If you manage to hit all of your targets in the upper torso area, then you're going to be welcomed by a 3-shot kill to a target at any range. That is crazy consistent and makes the weapon a real nightmare to deal with in multiplayer against a skilled shooter. And as you can see when it comes to headshots here as well, this thing will 2-shot a target at any range once again. Now, when we look at the recoil here in a second, that might seem a bit daunting and difficult to achieve. But there is a silver lining here, and it's worth pointing out that if you score an upper torso shot and then follow up with a headshot, or vice versa, you will kill a target in 2 shots at all ranges up until 46 meters plus. That is a huge point in favor of this weapon. If you're somebody who can manipulate the recoil to score consistent headshots here, then this weapon will reward you in spades, I tell you. Absolute spades. Something that I'll be including for the series of weapon reviews going forward is the bullet to kill stats for Warzone 2 and how many shots it's going to take to knock out a target wearing differing levels of armor. As we can see here with upper torso shots, we are also greeted by just an unbelievable consistency up to ranges below 46 meters. 6 shots to kill across the board, which just makes it a highly desirable weapon. And then if you decide to go ahead and throw headshots into the mix, this brings the weapon's bullet to kill all the way down to 4 shots, even against the most heavily armored targets you can come across, which, when we do our time to kill calculations, you'll see why this is something worth caring about here. And speaking of the weapon's time to kill here, if we take this weapon's damage model and get it matchmaking with our admittedly slow rate of fire of 571 rounds per minute, or 9.51 rounds per second, that produces some pretty fun numbers here for us to look at. Within close quarters combat, we see it sport a 210 millisecond time to kill, which actually isn't winning any races when you compare it against some of its competitors in the close quarters space. And just to be clear, when I say its competitors, I'm actually mainly talking about the assault rifles here. This thing is technically a battle rifle, yes, but this thing is like a big islander kid in year 8 that looks like he should be out completing his bricky trade. It's just a miscategorized AR in a battle rifle disguise, if you will. But yeah, the point being, it's not winning any races in the CQC department when it comes to raw time to kill against some assault rifles out there. It's not losing by a great deal, but it's certainly not winning. But as the range extends out, this weapon maintains its ideal time to kill at much longer distances comparatively to some of the other top pick assault rifles in the game right now, which is why it's really quite the pick for, say, Warzone, where that damage consistency over range is quite key. Now, if you throw headshots in the mix, this is actually a weapon that will reward solid accuracy better than most other guns that we've looked at so far in the game. If you can legitimately 2-tap a target's head at, say, 30 meters, the only other assault rifle to beat the TAQ-V is the Kastov 762 when it comes to raw time to kill, but only by a 5 millisecond difference, which is negligible in my opinion. The fact that the ideal headshot time to kill for this weapon against a fully plated armor target is identical to that of the worst case scenario for upper torso hits against a completely unarmored player, speaks volumes about what this weapon can do and how rewarding it is when you go for those headshots, which is once again why I sing this weapon's praises for that Warzone environment. The muzzle velocity of 660 meters per second is also better than what ARs bring to the table, meaning that you don't have to worry about, say, high velocity ammo, and you can save an attachment slot for something else if you choose to do so. But as we move on to the weapon's recoil, and this is where we start to find some skeletons in the closet here. Sure, the weapon hits like the Hulkbuster, just power blasting enemies into the ground with ease, but man oh man, the weapon does not make it easy on your poor gamer arms to get it done. Here, we can see some pretty savage vertical kick, and noting that these recoil graphs were taken only at 10-meter ranges, that's a significant amount of kick. The recoil starts off with some pretty wide spacing between the shots for the first 8 or so rounds, before it starts to level out a bit at the end of the burst. However, there is a silver lining here. The weapon's recoil is as straight as an arrow, for the most part, that being. Compensating for recoil here is going to primarily be down to you just holding down on the mouse or the joystick to keep the thing wrangled in. The horizontal shake here is kind of non-existent and is not going to be lying in wait there to just randomly throw your recoil off, which is great. It's good news given what this weapon is doing in the recoil department already. When it comes to barrel attachments, we can see that the Lance 50 12-inch barrel, which is advertised as providing a good boost to ADS speed and mobility, stuff like that, doesn't actually impact the recoil a great deal here, which kind of surprised me. The shots at the start of the burst are a little bit more spaced from what I can see, but once they start to group together at the end of the burst, it actually ends up being around the same effect at the end of the day. The 18-inch Precision 6 barrel, on the other hand, brings a lot for us to like here, sporting a well-improved recoil pattern that is a lot tighter in the early burst stage. It's definitely something worth considering for when you are building the weapon out, but we're going to address those considerations for you anyway here in just a second in the attachment section of the video. As far as the cone of fire here is concerned, the thing you should really be taking on board here is that you just shouldn't be hip firing this thing. A slower rate of fire in combination with a cone of fire accuracy that is just this terrible means that you are more likely to miss a shot, and a miss will be punished a lot harder against faster firing weapons that you will come across in these CQC ranges. If you're barrel stuffing someone like the Thanksgiving turkey, then go for it. Hip fire them down, but outside of that, do not bloody bother. Moving on finally to the weapon's handling, and we're actually welcomed by some pretty nice stats and some conversely pretty harsh realities here. The weapon really doesn't do things down the middle line, doesn't it? It's very extremist, either to the good or the bad, if you will. Our reload time is actually not that half bad here, only rocking 2.55 seconds to cycle a reload. Even our long reload, if you empty the magazine, isn't too scary either, only clocking in at 2.97 seconds. Given that we've only got a 20-round mag available to us out of the gate here, it's an absolute relief that the reload times aren't too punishing for us, because you're going to be reloading a lot here. Our aiming down sights time, however, if you're going to ADS to engage a target with this gun, which you should always be aiming to do, let's be honest, giving yourself a lot of time to work with here is important. The sprint to fire and attack sprint speeds here are not helping our case at all, meaning that we have some work to do if we're going to make this thing fit for aggressive plays. So that's the statistical makeup of the TAQ-V, and look, it may not look like much against the likes of some of the more popular weapons in the game right now, even against its smaller brother, the TAQ-V6, but this weapon actually sports a very special place in my heart, only because it by nature has an incredibly rewarding skill ceiling. It's not the best against other options when you use it at a lower level of skill and go for body shots only, but if you start to learn its quirks and how to manage its erratic recoil personality, this thing is an absolute bundle of destruction that will carry you far in Warzone games in particular, and also in the multiplayer mode. So we know it has a pretty intense damage payload behind it, and a really stroppy recoil kick and lacking mobility to boot. So keeping that in mind, let's go over some attachment options for the weapon and how to best kit it out in the long run. So first build I want to get into here today is the multiplayer aggression build. This is the build for the more, die-hard player who's zipping around the map and trying to get as many quick frags as they can in CQC. While yes, this weapon does struggle in the mobility department out of the gate, it's not like we can't change that, and this is the exact loadout that will get you there. The Lance 50 12-inch barrel is a great starting point. As we discussed earlier, this barrel does not represent a huge gain in overall vertical recoil kick, so throwing it on there for that increased mobility does go a long way to supporting the weapon and its endeavors in that CQC environment. The FFS OLEV laser, which is going to be a pretty common occurrence in today's video for all of our loadouts, this attachment is going to be critical in bringing down that aiming down sight speed which is just particularly critical for the multiplayer aggression loadout that we're running here today and just getting into the faces of your enemies. I've also got the demo clean shot grip and the TAQ-V X-Line Pro attachments on here as well, as they both improve the aiming down sight speed as well as the sprint to fire speed, the crouch walking speed, basically anything mobility wise that we care about with this weapon, it's on here. And if the gameplay in the background is anything to go by, you can see that this is actually a very mobile yet aggressively kicking TAQ-V that actually holds its own in CQC environments, being able to quickly snap to targets with a faster aiming down sight speed and really bring itself up to any challenge it faces in that CQC environment. We've also got the tuning setups on your screen as well if you want to follow along directly. Now moving on, say you're a bit more of a quieter and calmer collected individual here, then the next setup we've got is our multiplayer stability setup. This is more of a build that's designed to be a little bit more of a down the middle ground sort of thing, less focused on overall mobility, but can still hold its own in multiple situations. Starting things off here, as opposed to running a barrel attachment, we're instead opting for a muzzle attachment in the form of the Bore 490 for increased vertical and horizontal recoil control. Once again, as we're focusing less on aggression here and more at just a jack of all trades kind of build, we're aiming to reduce that vertical recoil significantly, or at least as much as we can. In the meantime, we're running the FSSOLEV laser once again, just to improve that aiming down sight speed a little bit, just to overall improve the adaptability of the platform that we're building here. Now for the stock this time around, we're actually running the TAQ-V Brute stock. This attachment does some wonders for your overall recoil stability and just helps to reel in the oomph that you'll feel every time this weapon kicks every once in a while. And then of course, much like last time, we've got the Chrono Mini Red Dot sight on here as well, just to help improve that target acquisition speed and just, provide a clearer picture. Which moves us on beautifully for our Warzone build here for the day. Now, starting things off, we've got that 18-inch precision 6 barrel on here. Now, yes, this thing does completely brutalize your aiming down sight speed, but in Warzone, where, the pace of gameplay is a bit slower and the time to kill is a touch longer, having that improved accuracy for those extended distances of engagement is going to go a long way. In order to improve the aiming down sight speed a little bit, once again, you guessed it, the FSSOLEV laser is making a return to just help to balance out that aiming down sight speed just that little bit more. Alongside the barrel, we're actually also running a, you guessed it, muzzle attachment here. This Lockshot KT85 does a long way in once again helping to really double down on that recoil control and just, again, help to improve the ranged stability of this Warzone build, because once again, ranged engagements are more common here. We've also got the TAQ-V Brute stock returning as well, just to help to, again, make the weapon a more stable firing platform, just so you can sort of point at a target and say, I want you to die now, and well, then they die. And lastly, but certainly not least, we've got the 50-round drum mag on here. As we all know in Warzone, there's a chance that when you engage one team member, his other mate might just be around the corner, and the more we can mitigate those reload times, the better. A 50-round drum mag, even with consideration to average accuracies for players in this game, will give you more than enough bullets to wipe out an entire squad, and then some, should you need to do so. Which just about wraps it up for our weapon loadouts here for the TAQ-V. Overall, it's a very adaptable platform that you can really sort of mesh like Play-Doh into anything you want it to do if you choose to do so. Just before we wrap up the video, a couple of closing tips and tricks for you guys as we, wrap things up. First and foremost, definitely don't be afraid to let off the trigger every once in a while. As we said before, this weapon kicks like an absolute mule, and if it gets the better of you, it's not going to laugh back at you as you, ease off the trigger for a second there. In fact, it may be encouraging you to do so. Patience is key with this weapon, and if you take a bit of extra time to work on that aim, then it will reward you greatly. Now, I know this is probably the most obvious tip in the book here, but I cannot emphasize enough going for headshots. There are very few weapons that reward consistent headshot gameplay like the TAQ-V does in this game. And with that 50-round mag on there for Warzone in particular, if you actually manage to score those headshots consistently, then well, you're left with just a plentiful amount of bullets to deal with anyone else that happens to show up. The weapon really does give you so much room for flexibility and rewards you greatly for going for those extra headshot damage hits. But folks, now I want to hear from all of you in the comment section down below. What do you think of the TAQ-V? Is it a weapon that you've picked up so far and upranked or even used in Warzone? Or is it something you haven't quite touched yet due to, it being a bit slower out of the gate to get things started? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed today's video, consider hitting that like button, as it does go a long way to supporting the channel. And say you really enjoyed the content and you're new here, then get subscribed so you stay up to date with future videos that are coming out soon. As always, social media links are also linked down below. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.